Three, two, one. Hi, everybody. Welcome to today's Career Chat. I'm Krista Harmon. I'm from the Kent Intermediate School District's Career Readiness Department. And I'm so glad to have Nate Rosel. He's a physical therapist here in Grand Rapids. And now, Nate, we're so glad you're here. Thanks for making time.
Hey, thanks for having me.
All right. So I know these young people who are with us today want to know, is this what you thought you'd do in high school? Take us back to when you were 16 or 17. What were you thinking?
That's a couple years back. Anyways, when I was in high school, 16 or 17, I kind of had a couple ideas of some things I wanted to do. I thought I was real active in sports. I thought that going through and finding a career that would be in that area or that realm would be outstanding. So when I was in high school, we were assigned, we had to do a couple career days where we had to go and shadow someone, that we knew, or it was something that we were kind of set up to sign up for that. So in that point, I followed one of the gals from church, and she was a physical therapy assistant, worked a little bit in the outpatient world where the patients would come and go, did some pool therapy with some of these patients. And as soon as I got done with that observation with her that day, I knew right then and there this was something I wanted to go into. But as I continued to observe, there was a couple. I did some other observations throughout might have been my junior year probably. Different settings. I found out that physical therapy was a lot more diverse than I actually thought it was. And that was one of the questions I was going to ask, because I didn't know how interactive this talk was going to be. I wanted to have the students, when they think of physical therapy, what do they think of? So I don't know if that's something that you can stem in the chat room and give me a couple things to maybe help guide what their visions are. If it's, oh, you're working with people with, I don't want to put words in my mouth, but people with broken bones or people after car accidents. So that would be kind of cool to hear some feedback on that.
Yeah, throw your kind of general idea of what you think physical therapy is. And we did have one earlier in our series, but I know that you guys come from different types of clinics, so it'll be interesting in some of your specialties. So yours is more sports, whereas his was not. So helping people recover, helping people from different injuries. Someone thinks of their grandparents. Someone thinks about giving the tools to help people get better, different exercises, sprains and fractures, helping people strengthen muscles, helping people after extensive surgeries. So they definitely have some good ideas.
Good. Yeah, a lot of times the physical therapy, people are along the lines of, oh, you just work with someone after they have surgery. No, I mean, we work with people if they've been out, especially this time of year in the fall when people are out raking and they're overdoing things and they hurt their back. Those are the type of people that I see. It goes from children, as in, infants, we can see, all the way up to, I've had 97-year-olds that I've treated, and, high school kids, middle school kids, elementary kids. So yeah, so that's some good background.
Great. We're definitely going to dig into that a little bit more. I want to still stay around that high school age, because I know students want to a little bit know how you got from point A to point B. So you took the initiative, and plus your school required some job shadows. So you did that, and it was a pretty impactful thing. So again, I want to encourage young people. This is a great substitute right now, what we're doing today for a job shadow. But as COVID passes through, I definitely want to encourage you guys to do that. So then, did you know what kind of college, or how did you figure out how to get to school and to become a physical therapist? Did someone teach you that? Did your parents help you out? Tell us about that.
Perfect. So kind of figured out that was the area that I wanted to kind of go into. I was a first generation college student. My mother was a bank teller. My dad was a police officer. That at the point they required an academy, no real college bachelor's degree at that point. So I looked at the route of going for a physical therapy assistant, which was a associate's degree that they offered through Baker College. And cost effective wise, it was a shorter program at that point. It was a 2-year program compared to the physical therapy program that was a 6-year program. So financially, I was like, I'd rather invest time and effort into 2 years of a program than if I decide I get out in the field and I say, this is what I really like. Yeah, then I can continue to pursue this and go back and get my 4-year degree and then get on to the graduate work. So That's what I did. I went and I got my physical therapy assistant degree and started working in various different settings. I worked in the hospital setting for about 2 years, and then I got into the outpatient world where I worked with different physical therapy outpatient clinics. At that whole time, then I was taking classes part-time, so I was working full-time, taking classes part-time, working towards my bachelor's degree, and then eventually got into Grand Valley's doctorate physical therapy program. And that was, I mean, that time frame there, we're talking 10 years.
And it's really great for young people to hear, because I think the PTA, the physical therapy assistant, is something for young people to consider, because it is just a 2-year degree, and it is a pretty solid wage. I think they average around $55,000 a year for that particular, that's a national average.
Yeah, depending on the setting.
Yeah, depending on the setting. And now my question for you with around the PTA, do those exact credits transfer to getting into the 4-year bachelor's to then get onto the grad school, or tell me about that transition?
That transition's a little muddy. There's at the point when I did that, there were the Baker College credits, I think, were 5 credits, and then they transferred to the university at like a 2.7 credit. So it wasn't quite, so it transferred the class over, but it didn't fulfill the 3 credits. So there was a little bit of, I had to retake a couple classes. So it was not ever an easy just boom, you transition. But there are 1 or 2 schools in the country that offer a transition from a physical therapy to a physical therapist degree. We just had some students that have gone through that.
Yeah, I did hear kind of mixed facts about that they are kind of separate tracks. So
Correct.
That's helpful for young people. But again, get out into the field, make sure it's something you like. I think that's a great strategy. But again, for some people, if you know you want to go to the full, you don't want to go the PTA route, because it's not going to totally align with your doctorate program.
Correct.
Okay. So you're out there working. What were some of your favorite things about being a PTA? Let's help the kids understand what that is versus an actual physical therapist, which we'll have you describe as well.
Yep. A physical therapy assistant is a person working in the physical therapy field that the only thing the difference is the physical therapy assistant cannot do the first initial evaluation. They don't set up the treatment plan. They don't set up the goals that need to be achieved. They are basically but they are given the goals from the physical therapist and say, this is what we're trying to work towards. Go about this way, trying to reach those goals. So they're kind of, I want to say the doer. They do a lot of the rehab, but the physical therapist is doing more of the diagnosing and setting up the treatment plan.
And I think that's really important for young people to hear, because some people want to work directly with the patients. They don't maybe like the idea of doing the treatment plans. And so I think there's some assumptions that you have to have your doctorate to be the one working with the patients. And I think it's really important for young people to understand that's actually the 2-year degree if you want to do some of that actual hands-on stuff. So you may not need to do that full school.
Yep.
That's really important to understand as you're making these decisions. So Baker College, again, is the closest one. So what made you decide, as a PTA, you're doing it, what made you decide to go back to get your doctorate? Because that is a big commitment in time and money and, to get to that next level.
Well, I felt like I was doing partial treatment to the patient. I didn't feel like I was given the information, and I felt like I could do more of the diagnosing. I wanted more of the picture, and I wanted the higher salary.
Yep,
when
that's
it comes
fair.
down to it. Yeah.
Yep. So what's the difference then? Give us, I know the students have heard a little bit about physical therapy with one of our career chat guests, but what are your favorite parts about your particular type of physical therapy in the clinic that you work at? What do you love about your job every day?
Yeah, about my job every day, it's very fun because of getting to know the patients on a personal level, and being able to help them get to the point where they want to get some more of their independence. Being able to goof around and have fun and watch the patients get to the point where they can't put on a shirt or a jacket by themselves because their arm hurts, and then all of a sudden, in a couple of weeks, they're able to put it on without a problem. So watching them hit their milestones and making some improvements is outstanding. And getting into some of the other activities with them, getting back on the the track of, hey, I'm not able to run because I had a knee injury, and then they're getting back to running, and helping them achieve, the goals of getting back to running a race. So
Yeah, so for young people, do you really get to see that tangible result of your work? I mean, someone couldn't put their shirt on and now they can. I mean, that's
yep,
some
yep.
jobs we don't see, we don't see the results, but in physical therapy, that's a beautiful thing about this particular field, it seems like.
Yeah, it's something as simple as that we all take for granted, hey, putting on your shoes and socks. Hey, if you've just had a hip or a knee surgery, you might not be able to bend over to reach that shoe or that your foot to help put that on, and being able to, some of the patients come in and we kind of laugh about it. It's like, okay, what 60-year-old can't put on their shoes and socks? Well, hey, they just had a big curveball through at them where they can't bend their knee or they can't bend their hip because they had a surgery, and or their neck or their back or their shoulder, any of that type of stuff. And it changes how they function.
I know some of the young people in this particular group really like the idea of working with kids. So
Yep.
Did you get to work with kids along your career? And is that something that you specialize in at a particular clinic, or how do you get to work with kids?
Yeah, working with kids. I mean, every setting has their own little specialty. Yeah, I've worked with kids. I've worked with kids as young as 3 months. I've worked with 2-3-year-olds, just depending on what we're getting with. And that's a lot of it depends on the setting you're at and some of the training you've had. If you're feeling comfortable with it, I've got some newer therapists that, no, I'm not going to throw a patient on their schedule that might be 3 or 4 years old and they have some difficulties that the therapist isn't comfortable treating. No, we're not going to have them treat that patient. We're going to put them on someone that feels comfortable treating them. So it's an area of specialty that people can specialize in as well.
Is it more on the job training to become a specialist in that, or they have to take extra classes?
I would say it's a little bit of both. We at each of our clinics, we try to have someone that's specialized in a certain area so that we kind of cover the whole age spectrum. We've got a couple people at certain locations that are more apt to being specialized in it. So yeah, so if there's something they're going to be more on the job trained, but then there is further classes or continuing education that they can pursue.
What might be an example a 3-month-old would need physical therapy?
Well, a lot of it is patient education for the parents. If it's dealing with torticollis, which is kind of like the wry neck, or the baby is being held in one position with feeding always, a lot of times with new parents, they're like, I feel more comfortable holding the baby in my left arm and feeding them with my right. And so that's what they do. They always hold them in one arm. And so it might be something as simple as, okay, when you position the baby and you feed it, let's mix it up. Let's feed it the other way. When they're laying on their backs or laying on their tummies, let's position it so that the baby doesn't have to always look the one direction, make them look the other direction so that you're stretching the neck muscles out equally.
How might they get a referral to you? Because that would seem like something a parent wouldn't even know they're doing wrong.
Correct. And that would be something that would come from the pediatrician when the pediatrician evaluates the baby. Yeah.
Okay, so the baby's showing some signs of
Yep.
not developing properly.
Not developing properly, and sometimes that is, and sometimes there's other cases that there's something else that's going on as well. But that's all to be determined, and through the evaluation.
Okay. So Dina was wondering, what's the longest time period you've worked with a patient?
The longest time period, like
length
days,
of time, 1 year, 2 years, 5 years?
I would say typically a patient we see them on an average for 10 to 12 visits on an average situation, and that 10 to 12 visits is a couple months. But I do have patients that I have seen ongoing with different ailments, or sometimes they're more involved after a motor vehicle accident. It might be someone that I see for a year and a half. Not obviously 3-4 times a week, but it might be, okay, we're doing twice a week for a couple weeks, then we drop down to once a week, and then we might be going every other week. So yeah, I've got some patients that I've been seeing for on and off for a couple of years.
It seems like one of the qualities you would have to be a good physical therapist then, and I want the young people to hear some of these natural skill sets, either they have them or they don't, or they can develop them, is that ability to build a relationship. Because man, you're right there in someone's face, or right there.
Oh yeah.
It's kind of intimate, I would think.
Yep.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, and so one of those things that was where I was at when I was in high school. I was very much, I want to say, introverted. Wasn't very outgoing, very loud spoken. in this career, you have to actually almost kind of morph into that, because you're the person in charge. You're the expert. You have to be able to be confident in what you do. And that's something that's, I think, comes with experience and being willing to, to tell people sometimes the truth hurts on some things. Am I going to be able to do this? No, you might not, but let's work as hard as we can so that we can get to that aspect.
So I know when, if I was a young person, I'm thinking about getting my doctorate in PT, like, what is the part of the schooling like when you actually start touching people? Because some of us think, oh, I don't know if I want to go into that because I don't know if I want to touch people. Was that strange in the very beginning? Yeah.
It was like, everybody's like, ooh, you got to touch feet? I don't want to touch other people's feet. But yeah, I mean, that's one of the aspects that once you get past the point of, yeah, okay, it's someone's foot, but you get down to it, it's looking at the structure of the foot and moving the joints, working on someone's arm. Yeah, I've got my hand right in somebody's armpit. It's not the most enjoyable, but it's all part of it. It's one of those things, we've had some people that are uncomfortable that, okay, we'll modify our treatment, or I'll put on gloves. If people like, don't want you touching my feet, we'll put on gloves or put a pillowcase over it, or, it is one of those things that it's, if you're not a touchy-feely kind of person, well, it's something that can be trained, or there's some settings where you don't necessarily need to always touch the person either.
So give us some examples of that, because that might be interesting for some young people who are thinking, yeah, I'm not sure I want to touch people's feet.
Well, in that setting, it might be along the lines of like working in you're going to be touching people, but maybe not as in depth as you do it in my clinic. But like in a nursing home, you're getting someone up, you're putting a gait belt on them and helping them walk around the community, or around the room, or around the floor. At hospital settings, I mean, that's a lot of that. So you're not necessarily touching people as much, but there is other things that you have to be careful of in the hospital. So
you got to tell us now. You can let that little hint out.
That's some of your treatment is you're walking the patient to the bathroom.
Yeah.
Enough said.
Well, and I think that's what's important for young people to understand. It is a pretty intimate thing when you're helping people with healthcare in general. And just like young people might hear, oh, I don't want to deal with, blood and bile. Yeah. There are some parts of nursing that you never have to interact with bodily fluids. Correct. And so that's why I want to almost have you address some of those myths about physical therapy. Like you said, what do people say? You're like, well, no, it's not really like that. What are some of those myths about your industry that you want young people to know?
Oh, I mean, that with you're talking myths of like the type of people that we treat,
or like sometimes like a lot of us think that the healthcare is kind of like Grey's Anatomy. It's like, yeah, that's gotcha. Not really like that. So what are things about your industry that it's like, no, it's not really like that?
A lot of times patients, when they come in, they are surprised how much, I don't want to say how fun it can be, but how we're there supporting them. It's not, you come in, you bust your butt, go through your stuff. No, we're here. I'm sitting there right next to you while you're doing your exercises or helping you do these different activities. And, it's not just all no pain, no gain.
So you're really an encourager as part
Correct.
of your
an encourager and kind of a coach.
Them.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Have you found that you've got to work as much with athletes as you had originally hoped when you were in high school?
I have. Yeah, you've worked with them quite a bit. A wide variety from middle school, high school, college, and some pro and semi-pro. That's one of the things that is enjoyable. But as I've been out in the field, there's more avenues of that. Like, I want to say the weekend warriors, the type of people that aren't in they're competitive, but they're not in that competitive level, which is a whole group that I wasn't really aware of.
Do they provide a lot of business for you because they overdo it?
They overdo it, especially. Yes.
Well, it sounds like you really enjoy your job as far as being able to help people make progress and just become healthier. I know young people also want to know, what's the part you really don't like that they should know about?
Well, one of the big things about the healthcare industry, I think across the board, is obviously paperwork, but dealing with insurance companies, dealing with reimbursement rates. Insurance companies are always wanting to pay us less where the physical therapy is kind of the bottom fruit on the tree, where everybody thinks that, oh, that's not an important field. We're going to try to cut back services on that, cut back reimbursement on that. And that's probably one of the biggest frustrations, where patients have physical therapy coverage, but the insurance says, no, I think you only need 8 visits and you should be done. And realistically, every patient's different, but having to fight for the patient to utilize their services is a big frustration.
Yeah, I can imagine when you know someone needs 12 or
Yeah.
20 sessions and insurance is only paying for 8.
Yeah.
What's it like, just your culture at your clinic, you know, as far as with your colleagues? What's that all about? Is it fun? Do you get to interact with each other? Or is it mostly just you with your patients?
No, so in our setting here, we have on an average day, probably 3 to 4 physical therapists working. And we have patients coming and going, and I communicate with other therapists, and the other therapists communicate with my patients, and it's kind of, the kids are too young for this, but kind of like Cheers. You walk into Cheers and everybody says hi to everybody. And it's a really fun environment. It's fun coming to work.
I think that would be this is different than some of the other environments where it's not so regimented all day long with appointments, like a dentist office, you know, it's like doom, 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 doom.
Correct.
Like say people are coming and going. And so you get to maybe, like you say, have a little more fun and relax.
Yeah, and it's like our environment here. I'm in one of our private treatment rooms here right now, but our gym areas, I mean, it's wide open. So we got a bunch of tables out there, and everybody sees everybody, and it's, you know, other patients see other patients doing better, you know, so it's kind of cool if you're a patient and, you know, and one of the other patients talk to you and say, hey, I see that you're doing better. And that's kind of a nice little kudo for the patient.
When high school students are thinking about those next steps, Nate, do you guys do job shadows once COVID's through? Do you allow students to come in? What would be some things they could be doing in high school to kind of start preparing for going into the PT field? Any suggestions?
Yes. To answer your question, yes, we do job shadows. We do all that stuff, you know, depending on COVID, and things preparing for that. Hey, I would just start researching physical therapy and seeing what area might intrigue you, because that's when I have students that come in here, I say, this, if you had a good time here, or even if you didn't like this, still observe other places, because in high school, this is the most important time when it's okay to go out and observe a place and realize, hey, this wasn't for me. I didn't like this. But don't say, I went and visited Nate, that's physical therapy, I didn't like that. No, because there's inpatient, there's you know, dealing with spinal cord injuries through Mary Free Bed, there's nursing home settings, there's home health care, there's aqua therapy, there's all kinds of avenues. So it's not like this physical therapy is one specific setting. And so that's what I always encourage high school students is, this is the time, call people, go places, look, and observe as much as you can.
Absolutely. I think that's such good encouragement. And for young people, I know that COVID has interrupted our job shadows right now, but you can go online and Google videos of physical therapy, and you can see people who have produced really great videos to give you another inside scoop of what this is all about. So take that time to do some internet research to find what videos you can. I do have a resource I'll be sharing with you in just a minute. Just with it's about 5 minutes before 4 already, Nate. We have some kids who are really excited of what you've been sharing. It feels like a really good fit to them, so they're looking forward to exploring more.
Awesome.
Do you have a favorite patient story that you could share with us?
Favorite patient story? Oh, let's see. Give me a little more specific that you'd like to, like a funny one.
Like one of those patients maybe that just really touched your heart, that maybe you even still are in contact with today, or someone that you saw was so bad health-wise and where they are now, just maybe where you've really seen your expertise pay off in a way.
Okay. All right. So there's been a number of patients, but I would say where you see someone that comes in recently here through the whole COVID aspect of things, people felt like they were so isolated, and having a patient that came in with after a surgery, the last couple of days before they shut all the hospitals down. This is one of the ones that happened here just recently, and they felt like they were just doomed because, like, oh, they shut everything down, I'm going to get this COVID. you know, we're all kind of in this together where we're like, what's going to happen? What are we going to do? And to the point where we were able to coach this patient, get them back, get them going, really be a encourager and a role model for them, getting them back on their feet, getting them walking. And, you know, I just ran into the patient here the other day and doing phenomenal, doing really well, encouraged, and had a can't thank me enough for being the positive influence through the difficult time, which we all were kind of on edge, didn't really know what was happening.
Yeah, that's got to be such a great part of your career.
Yeah,
for sure. Well, I'm going to give you a chance to think about just a kind of final word of wisdom or encouragement to these young people. For those that have been in the immersion program, this is their 14th career chat. They've been learning so much,
okay.
And hopefully they're starting to get some sense of what they want to do. If you're new to today's career chat, I did want to point out a really great resource where you can dig into this career a little further, and it's called onetonline.org. And this is a government-based career exploration website. And up in the right-hand corner, you can actually put in, you know, the occupation and read all sorts of amazing information about it, which will help you with your research. This is just a screenshot of the physical, whoops. See where my screen went there. Oh, I lost it.
We see it.
Okay, it actually went to the internet. So I guess I have the actual website. So let me just plug in. It kind of caught me off guard. I'm actually going to close that out and show back to my screenshot here. I have to stop sharing for a second. Sorry about that. Let me go back to, sometimes Zoom just gets me. So this is a screenshot of the ONET online for physical therapists. And as you can see, there's different titles, which we've learned about some of the other healthcare occupations that they're called different things. So it could be a DPT, which is a doctor of physical therapy, an outpatient, which is when patients go into the doctor's office versus being in the hospital, which is inpatient. So I love for you just to explore along with what kind of skills and abilities you need, for example. But I just took a screenshot of when you put in physical therapist, these are also other jobs that ONET deems have some connection, some similarities. And so again, you might want to check out occupational therapy. What is a radiation therapist? What is art therapy, for goodness sakes? Recreational therapy down here. We learned about respiratory therapy at the beginning of this series. So this is a great website just to explore. And as you can see here, physical therapist has a huge outlook. They need more of them, don't they? Nate, what do you know about the demand?
That there's no problems getting a job once you get out of school.
Yeah, that's a beautiful thing, young people. If you're going to commit that time and money to an education, you'll be able to get a job. Nate has been kind enough to offer up his email. If you have any additional questions, if you're thinking physical therapy might be for you, that is his email. So nate.rosel@pt-cpr.com. You can also email me if you're part of the immersion program. This is my email, which is just kristaharman@kentisd.org. So as I leave that up for a second, Nate, how would you like to finish out our 30 minutes together? What would you like them to know?
I would like them to know that if they're considering the physical therapy field, please do as much observation as you can get your hands on. Go and ask questions. When you go and observe, don't be shy. Just be there, ask as many questions as you possibly can, because, you know, it's a big commitment. If you want to get out and observe different areas, the biggest pet peeve I have when students come out and that they just stand there and they don't ask questions. They're not engaged. This is your opportunity to go out and explore, ask away. There's no such thing. There's no such thing as a stupid question. So
I think that's important, because just so young people understand, that's really annoying for the adults to have you come in and shadow and you don't engage. You've got to ask questions, and it's really helpful if you think ahead what kind of things you want to find out, so you have a list ready to go. But it's not as much fun if you're not talking. So keep that in mind if you end up with the opportunity to actually do in-person job shadow, that you ask questions. So Nate, I'm going to stop recording, but I want to thank you so much for being here today and joining us. I know the kids really benefited from that, and I always learn something too. So thank you so much.
Awesome. Well, thank you for having me.